The rocket propagation tool is essentially a power tool. Okay, it's a power tool on the surface of Mars. And when you're operating power tools, of course, you realize that you have to be extremely careful. You don't want stuff like this. Very, very bad. Fortunately, that hasn't happened. This you saw in the video. This is how we land. Come screaming into the Martian atmosphere going 25 times the speed of sound. We put out a parachute at Mach 2, a supersonic parachute. That's a little tricky, it turns out. Lander descends on a bridle. This is what we look like as we're falling at 300, 400, 500 miles an hour towards the Martian surface. Here's the parachute. I just put this in because it's a pretty picture. This was actually done in the big 40 by 80 foot wind tunnel. This was a test that was done just up the road here at Ames Research Center. Only about a year and a half ago. We use airbags to land. What? That's an engineer at JPL being consumed by his work. Airbags inflate, rocket motors fire. We bounce, we bounce, we bounce, we roll, we roll, we roll. We can travel as much as a kilometer. Another thing was just the whole business of how you deploy this monstrosity once it's down on the surface. If it lands on its side, it flips itself upright, and then you have this thing, which doesn't look anything like a rover yet, sitting there. There are more gears and springs and motors and hinges and moving parts. This was the scariest part of the whole mission, I think, for all of us. But then we were faced with the issue of turning this folded up thing and doing this reverse origami trick to turn it into something that looked like a rover. That was the first part. Here's the second part. This one's even worse. There's a little jack under this thing. And it jacks it up. Then watch this. This is just crazy. They fold out, they latch, and we heave a big sigh of relief. But it was unnerving. Another thing is, how do you drive on another planet when there are rocks around? You know, what I'd love to be able to do is I'd love to joystick the thing, right? I'd love to steer around this rock and go, but you can't. The day we landed, sending a radio signal from Earth to Mars at the speed of light took 12 minutes. And another 12 minutes to see the result back. Okay, imagine trying to drive your car that way. Okay? So what we had to do was endow these vehicles with the capability to look ahead, to see obstacles, and to steer around them. So we put these cameras, sort of look like eyeballs, right down on the front bumper. This is a picture from these cameras. And what they do is the rover will take a look at the terrain in front of it. If it looks safe, because what it's doing, it takes pictures. The pictures never come down to Earth. They're just analyzed on board the vehicle, build up a 3D terrain map of the terrain in front of you. The rule is don't try to drive over anything bigger than your wheel. Okay? If it looks safe, you go forward about 50 centimeters and you do it again. If you see a scary obstacle, you go around it, and we've got some sensors to figure out how far that we've gone and so forth. Now, this is some of my favorite images from the whole mission. As our vehicle was descending towards the surface, we had another camera on it that looked down. So these are pictures, these are 3 pictures that were taken from overhead, looking down as the spacecraft is screaming towards the surface, hanging on the parachute. You see a crater there, and just to the left of the crater, there's a little black dot. Okay, that black dot is the shadow of the parachute. So these images show the view from overhead, and then down in the bottom there, you're viewing it obliquely. The red curve shows the trajectory that our spacecraft followed as we were coming towards the surface. So we're screaming in from space, we're going 300 miles an hour, we get close to the surface, we fire the rocket motors, drop the airbags free. The wind, which is blowing from the south, causes that trajectory to curve to the north, bounce, 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 roll, roll, roll. Reading the green perfectly, it bends a little bit to the left, and goes right into a 20-meter impact crater. Tiger Woods on his best day. could not have done this.